I have learned though that a lot of people don't get extra energized by it and excited about it. And obviously we know that usually becomes because we're not prepared. We don't know what we want to do, or, as like we say in TRP all the time, like it just becomes problem whack-a-mole and we're not creating systems and rhythms. And I was definitely there, like 5 years of my practice where we'd have a quarterly meeting and it would be like, what do you want to talk about? What should we work on?
Right.
And to get to the level where you have constant, like same, like rhythms, meetings, like subjects, content, all of that is become really refreshing and really exciting to come into those quarterly meetings.
Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We're here to lead you on the way. All right, welcome back to the Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. I am here with a lovely return guest, Dr. Rachel, who was just at the immersion in Arizona together. We've been hearing from some of our speakers there. We just had David Norrie, who was talking about the power of presence and being human again. And I'm just going to carry that forward here because power of presence with our team is a big deal, right? And what we were chatting offline is like how important the quarterly meeting is to that leadership in your team and that ability to bring the vision into real time. So, Dr. Rachel, welcome back. Why don't you tee us off on here we are at the end of a quarter? What should we be thinking about?
I love it. So when it comes to quarterly meetings, it's something that should super energize us and get really excited about. I have learned though that a lot of people don't get extra energized by it and excited about it. And obviously we know that usually becomes because we're not prepared. We don't know what we want to do, or, as like we say in TRP all the time, like it just becomes problem whack-a-mole and we're not creating systems and rhythms. And I was definitely there, like 5 years of my practice where we'd have a quarterly meeting and it would be like, what do you want to talk about? What should we
Right,
work on?
right.
And to get to the level where you have constant, like same, like rhythms, meetings, like subjects, content, all of that is become really refreshing and really exciting to come into those quarterly meetings. So
Mhm.
yeah, and that's normal. I mean, Lona, we coach a lot of practices that don't have a lot of quarterly meetings in the rhythms. And so I guess where would you tell people to start
Mm.
when you maybe don't do necessarily a structured quarterly meeting, monthly meeting, that type of thing?
Yeah, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror first, right? Because the structure that we're wanting sometimes is the thing that or I shouldn't say the structure we're wanting, the outcomes we're wanting is going to come from the structure we're avoiding. And so I think the quarterly board meeting is one of those structures that sometimes we can almost feel like there's an afterthought of like there's a lot, I may be behind on my notes or my team, we need to do this marketing thing instead. And we don't slow down enough to plan a 2 or 4 hour chunk where we just look at like, how's it going? Right? Like, did we actually do what we set out to do last quarter? And where are we actually at in the year? And what's working well? And who's overwhelmed and who's underwhelmed? And like squeeze the juice from first ourselves getting prepared for that meeting, knowing that we are the chief vision officer for the entire organization, and no one else is generally going to kind of rewrite that ship if it's gotten out of alignment other than us, and squeeze the juice from our team because our team a lot of times has really brilliant insights, but if we're not asking and we don't have enough quote unquote time to squeeze that together, then we'll miss some of the things that are going to launch us actually closer and further than if we would have just stayed in busy mode, right?
Mhm, for sure.
Yeah.
And when Lona was saying like the vision piece too, I think what stood out to me was I hear a lot of people say like, I don't even know like where to start. And one of my favorite tools I think that gets underutilized is the accountability grid, because
Mhm.
that can really show you like where do you want to focus a practice on right now? Where do you feel like those numbers are low? And where do you, need to put our energy in? Because a lot of times we don't really, it's hard to grasp that. You know what I'm saying? Like when you fill out the accountability grid and sometimes you'll write a low number, like even for our own practices, and you're like, interesting. I don't think I would have really thought of that sometimes if I didn't actually like put a score to stuff.
Yeah. Well, what Rachel's referencing to, and we can drop a link below for anyone that isn't familiar with the grid, so they can look at it. It's the 15 functions of any business that is a chiropractic practice, right? And there's attraction, there's conversion, which is our sales process, there's retention, there's team building, and then there's obviously money collection and money organization and how money flows in and out. And what can happen, and this is why we have to like ask ourselves, like, when we sit as the CEO or the owner operator and look out at what could be possible in the next quarter or where we're at in the year in relationship to hopefully the goals we set before the year began, right? We're really only ever measuring our grid up against that vision, right? So if we haven't taken the time to look at our potential and where we're headed, like we haven't put the navigational system directed towards something, that's the first step, right? Like, what's a win here? Where are we going next? And that's usually what our team really needs is clarity of like, where are we actually at and where are we actually going? And then using what Rachel said there is like, if we're not there yet, which you're probably not, because if you're in a business, there's constantly things we're trying to strive to improve and grow, like number of volume that we're seeing per week, or amount of collections we're having, or number of new patients, or our retention, any number of things. When we can kind of wrap our brain around, well, where are we off track from that? That's actually should be where we're like licking our lips. Like we're excited because there's generally something we can actually go in and tweak, right? Which is why we want to go ask our team then, like, hey, we have this, this issue in this part of the grid, right? This issue maybe in retention or this issue in our internal referral campaigns. Like they're not producing or they're not where they should be. Like, let's put our brains together and let's actually like get tactical about what we can do for the next 3 months to improve that, right? So, Rachel, let's say you guys are sitting down. I know you have a very successful family practice here in Minnesota. Like, how do you, as the owner, as the CEO, start to prepare that, knowing like you want to squeeze the juice from your team, but you also need to get prepared for your team? How do you do that?
So we have a pretty structured agenda that we've been following and tweaking like
Mhm.
constantly. But like you said, like just a high level overview, it's always like heart, head, hands, feet for us too.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we always go through mission, vision, purpose, like get excited. Like this is why you're here. You're my A player, right? I don't want to set that tone for the meeting because that really does kind of invite people to get excited and to contribute too. And obviously a lot of our mission is family, team player. I think going through stats, like numbers, getting real on that, like that's a huge thing, where we were, where we need to keep going. And then it's chunking through all of the different pieces of kind of practice in some sense. But we usually start with the accountability grid.
Mhm.
And I have everybody go through it themselves and then as well as me. And then my office manager and I typically will go through it ahead of times too and talk about, what we really want to focus on. And then when it comes to like team involvement, that's where my brain is speaking out loud of what we do. But really, then it's like, then we lay out our 90-day project planners. And it's like, okay, what are our tasks, right? And we have a little bigger team like we have, we can come up with 3 to 5 different projects that the team can be evolving with and working on. And that really helps us then to not just plan something at the beginning of the quarter too, and then a month and a half in, we realize we never talked about it, and then guess what happens? It never happens. We just create a plan with it, and everyone holds accountability to things. And another tactical piece with it is like put it in the Google Calendar. We got to reverse engineer when we got to start doing things and planning things and choke points and that piece. And I think that's where people lose track is they plan it, have awesome ideas, and then there's no implementation for it.
No implementation or no accountability to the follow
Sure.
through. Yeah. Yeah, that's very well said. And I think, unpacking that for a minute is like, I think the overwhelm sometimes that people feel, and even just hearing that, like, oh my gosh, I'm already like feeling like I'm behind, right? Like I'm behind and I have a lot happening, or I'm behind in my notes, I'm behind in like some of the marketing things I wanted to do. But in order to loosen that feeling of always feeling behind, we need more structure and we need more leadership from other people on the team, which means we have to enroll them, which is a slow down to speed up many times. Slow down to speed up. Like the board meeting should feel like that. We're going to slow down to speed up, right? Where, yes, it's extra preparation, but in order to then paint a picture so that you can enroll the 4, 5, 6, 2 other people on your team, to be more productive. And then, as Rachel said, like to have a strategy in place for implementation, and then to review it, right? Whether that's at your next one-on-one, or for us, we have a lot of big whiteboards around our team meeting. And so every week there should be no surprises through reviewing, our metrics each week, to also having the projects live on the whiteboard where we can have a quick check-in, like, how's this coming, right? So that we don't get a month into the quarter and nobody's moved the needle on something. I know for us also, there's sometimes projects that have great intentions, and we do get midway through the quarter and it's like nothing happened, right? So I'll use an example of like testimonials in our office for, longer than they should have, was something that had great intentions. We were measuring it, but it seemed like in mid shift, when we should be grabbing testimonials from, somebody who had a great reeval or a great, transition into next phase of care and was singing our praises, like that would have been a great time to grab that. But it's busy and it's like everybody's got stuff going on. And it felt like we could not pull that in real time into testimonials. Well, we realized, like, okay, rather than trying to do it the way that we thought we should be doing it, let's just batch it. So it became a project that always lived in quarter one, where we just take one or two people and assign them for the week of our like chiropractic birthday, meaning like for us, the first week of the year is like us celebrating always an anniversary essentially. We would have a big party in the office, and we would have someone that was just there to be like, what has chiropractic done for you? And gotten those testimonials. And all of a sudden we had 50 testimonials every January that came in that would set us up for the rest of the year, because we weren't trying to do it week by week. So that was just where we had to put our heads together and say, all right, real talk, we're not going to get it done mid shift. Like, we got to come up with a different plan, right?
Well, and to your point too, like sometimes your projects are really fun and really sexy and exciting, and sometimes they're just like make sure the front desk is trained in and really like
Yes.
digging in on like what is happening with like hires, different parts of the practice too. Because sometimes if we're the owner of the clinic, we think we need to be doing all these massive stuff.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, what, like, for instance, like, fix your shit. If stuff isn't great though either in the clinic, that should be a project too before we go all over the place with things as well. So, your 90-day projects should be really a lot of different things at a lot of different times too, and that's okay. As a small business, that's real reality of it.
A lot of this is like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? If I reflect back on where we were years ago to where we are now, an elephant has been eaten, right? But there's still another elephant to eat. And I think too, like, if we're not having these quarterly meetups where we're taking the data and looking at the data of the last 13 weeks too, we can really set ourselves up for some painful situations. It's kind of like what we're teaching our patients, right? Our practice members, like, let's be proactive here. Let's like not let things get back to that really painful spot. Let's like stay consistent with care. Well, part of being proactive in our business is looking at things before they're screaming at us, right? And we all have probably some painful stories of where we haven't done that or haven't done it effectively. And then the practice gives us symptoms. That's what we're trying not to do, right? If we put these rhythms like a quarterly board meeting in place, it is like our chiropractic adjustment to the subluxation of the practice. We should be palpating, we should be looking for patterns in the practice so that we can address them through directing the team's effort, essentially, and focus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing too that I find I hear a lot actually is people don't have their quarterly meetings scheduled, and then guess what? Q2 starts and then they're having their meeting.
Yeah.
And so in our practice, we're usually 2 to 3 weeks before the quarter even starts, our meeting is happening so that you have even 2 weeks to prepare for things. Because we all know too, like also, if you don't get it scheduled way ahead of time, then it may not happen and then it gets forgotten or it's delayed. And that really honestly that keeps that rhythm from happening as well. So we typically will bring up the year calendar and schedule all of our quarterly meetings 3 weeks before the quarter starts, and I think you guys do that too, right?
Yep. Yep. We have ours next week. And so here's your call to action. If you have already, recognized, like, I don't have something scheduled, go
Mhm.
ahead and schedule out quarter two, quarter three, quarter four. So it lives somewhere, even if it's just taking your team to lunch or catering lunch in and you got an hour and 90 minutes, it's better than not doing any sort of coming together masterminding on, the 13 weeks prior and then looking ahead. I promise you, your entire team will actually really probably enjoy the fact that you got to like do this together.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Fun.
Yes. All right, Rachel, if anyone's listening in, they're like, okay, I need her help to help me get systematized and organized around my board meeting and my rhythms. Like, how do they find you?
Yes, and I think that's one of my favorite things about coaching too is in TRP, obviously like the tactical pieces of practice running and stuff like that. But one of my favorite things is getting this stuff in place. And that's one of the greatest strengths that TRP has
I agree.
given for me in my practice. Like I love that and being able to have this stuff that's repeatable, measurable, and structured, go, and create those rhythms. That's been like my favorite thing just about what TRP has to offer with our clients. So yeah, on the coaching pages, you can find both of us, and that's the greatest way is to reach out and get on a strategy session, and that's where we just banter and figure out like how we can help and if it's the right fit.
Yes. Perfect. Awesome. Always a pleasure. I know I'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye, sweetie. Hey everyone, please listen in for this next bonus interview of one of our remarkable success partners. They all help us help more people find the benefits of chiropractic. So listen on.
Hello, remarkable CEOs. This is Dr. Coach Eric DiMartino here with Dr. Travis. He's one of our remarkable success partners with TRP, and we love our remarkable success partners because they help our clients help more people. And that's what we're here in the business to do. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Travis. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Dr. Eric. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So Dr. Travis is a chiropractor, and he's also the founder of Chiro-Ads Academy. And so he's here to talk about how chiropractors running ads can drive more new patients into their business. So Dr. Travis, please tell our listeners a little about yourself.
All right. So I actually started my practice in Boulder, Colorado in 2020 during the middle of COVID. And so because of that, we came up against a lot of challenges on driving new business through the door. There wasn't a lot of external marketing opportunities. And so one of the things that we knew we needed to get into was digital marketing. And that's because we not only wanted to survive, but we wanted to thrive. We wanted to grow a healthy practice. And fortunately, we were able to get involved with an agency pretty quickly. And we saw some traction pretty quickly. And we saw some new patients come through the door. And then that quickly declined after month one into month two, month three. And so we got in onto what we now refer to as the agency hamster wheel. So if we jump from one agency to the other, and long story short, we ended up working with 4 different agencies and 2 different consultants over the course of about, a year to 18 months, something like that. And we saw a little bit of success with each of them, but it always quickly declined due to some unknown reason. And so we knew that it could work. And we knew that there were a lot of practices out there that were leveraging it and making it work. And so what we finally did was took it upon ourselves to go outside the industry and learn from a bunch of prolific and iconic marketers now in the entrepreneurial space. And we were able to create a really great in-house ad system. And fortunately, that in-house ad system pulled me out of a pretty deep hole in the practice because we weren't able to drive a lot of new business. And actually, you were in my corner during that time. You were my coach, so you know how much we were struggling. And fortunately, we were able to, like I said, turn on the new patient acquisition system. And we grew by $50,000 a month in as little as 6 months. And so this was something that allowed me to build a successful practice that I was hoping to build whenever I embarked on this journey. And I started talking about it a little bit on my podcast, which is essentially my digital diary on how challenging it was starting an entrepreneurship, starting a practice in Boulder, Colorado during the middle of COVID. And several people reached out. And they wanted to know how we actually built this in-house ad system and how we were able to control our new patient volume. And so we started a little beta test, which was we took on 5 practices, myself and my co-founder now, who was then my office manager, who's also the CTO of the program, really tech savvy. And we were able to implement this program in 5 different practices all across the United States. And they had better results in their markets than we actually were seeing here in Boulder. And so we knew we had something special. And that was over 3 years ago almost by this point. And now we have officially coined it the Chiro-Ads Academy, and we have nearly 400 members as of yesterday. So yeah, the program has grown really quickly, because I believe we found a void and filled it. And, it was all based on the testing and the iterations and the challenges that we had inside of my practice, but also being able to identify specific problems with digital marketing and then create viable solutions to those problems. And so we were able to actually get better in our digital marketing over time, which was something that we had never seen happen before with the agencies. It had always started great and then gotten worse over time. So it was completely inverse. And that allowed me to, first off, grow my practice, but secondarily, now have this other business that has really been able to serve the profession at a high level.
Great, man. I didn't know some of that backstory that that's where that came from, and it was from your podcast. Yeah, for
Mhm.
those of you that don't know Dr. Travis, he also has his own podcast, which is awesome. I recommend you check it out. It's called Making Moves. Is that correct?
It's now called The Arena.
Oh, okay. Updated.
Yeah.
So the arena.
It's updated. Yep.
Is it on anywhere we can find
Yep,
podcasts?
it's
I'm assuming you can
Spotify.
find it.
Yeah, it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's The Arena with Dr. Travis. So you've actually been on that podcast. You've
I
been
have.
featured. So maybe we'll leave
Yeah.
that episode in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so check it out, guys. It's great, great content, great high-level chiropractic talk. So that's awesome. And so it's great. You got 400 people now you're serving, which is amazing. And it's funny. I've worked with a lot of docs that started right around COVID, and it's like the same story as like, yeah, not the best time to start, right? Everything is shut down, especially in Colorado. I'm in Michigan, so we had the same kind of shutdown as you guys had to deal with. Everything was limited, and it's like, okay, I got to start this new business. I need new patients, and I literally can't go out in the community. I can't do talks. I can't do anything. But I think you'd probably agree now it might have been the best thing that ever happened, right? Because it made you get innovative and develop this new thing that has now become not just a great driver of new patients to your personal practice, but helping a lot of chiropractors as well.
Yeah, 100%. It was a pivotal moment in my life. And at the time when I'm sweating through my bed sheets, wondering how I'm going to pay overhead and pay salaries and, just make it, I got a new wife and we moved all the way across the country to start this practice. There's a lot of pressure. And with that pressure came a lot of responsibility. And, fortunately, we were able to get innovative and resourceful. And I think that was one of our greatest strengths was resourcefulness. And we were able to now put together not only a system that we still use inside of our business today, inside of our practice, which I'm fortunate to have, but we've also been able to install into hundreds of practices and they're able to reap those benefits as well. So you're right. Those biggest challenges eventually turned into our greatest triumph for sure.
Ways, man. That's great. In TRP, we're always teaching our docs that every business exists to solve a problem, right? Every business. And that's how the bigger problems you solve, the more successful the business is typically. And so specifically for you guys, not just what kind of problems do you solve, because there's a lot of digital market agencies, but what specifically makes you guys kind of unique, that helps you solve a very specific type of problem for chiropractors?
Yeah, I would say that, every person listening to this podcast is somewhere on the timeline of the chiropractic life cycle as you guys communicate it, which is they're either about to launch a practice, they're building a practice, they're scaling a practice, or they're looking to exit a practice. And so at every single one of those seasons or phases of the chiropractic life cycle, you have new challenges that arise. And, what we set out to do was to solve one of the biggest challenges to growing a business, period, which is new business development and being able to generate new patients on demand. And so, what we did is we essentially went under the hood and used our own diagnostic abilities to be able to identify exactly where the problems were in each of these different experiences that we had with agencies. And so when we were able to identify those problems and then solve those problems, which is typically high lead cost and poor quantity of leads, not getting the leads through the door, so having a low show rate, poor quality of leads or tire kickers, as people like to call them, or you're flying blind with little to no data. You don't know which data to track. You don't have that data being communicated to you, so you can't make CEO level data informed decisions. And all of those things lead to a poor lagging indicator, as you like to say, which would be poor outcomes. Okay. And so what we figured out is how to solve all four of those problems with our proprietary system. And then when we install that into these practices, which is first, the solution is getting the lead cost down. So generating more trust. We're in a trust economy right now. It's really hard to gain trust with people. In the way that our advertising or our creative framework was set up with all of these other experiences, it was generic and it was unspecific. And so we created a proprietary triad called the Triad of Trust, which is where we are relevant, omnipresent, and unique. So through the relevance, we like to target the largest motivating factor and meet people where they're at and speak to the experience that they're currently having right now through condition specific funnels. And then with the uniqueness, we want to position ourselves as something different, a new opportunity, and really shine light on our point of difference and say what only you can say. And then with the relevance, we want to leverage the exposure effect. Everybody knows that you have to hear or see something 7 times before you're actually compelled to act. And so we like to leverage that through frequency of showing up on people's timelines so that you actually build familiarity with people, and that actually builds trust over time. And then we tip the scale with social proof. So that's leveraging credibility and through character interchange, which means that people can actually see people inside your office getting the results that you're promising in your advertisements. So you're not being offer focused, you're being condition specific, and then you're building trust through all of these pieces of the anatomy of a conversion based ad. And then you're tipping the scale with that social proof and a compelling call to action. So eventually people come in trust matured. So you're going to get higher lead quantity at a lower cost. They're going to come in trust matured. They're going to know who you are. They're going to want your services that you provide, which is typically care plan based practices. And then we also teach people how to analyze data. So we teach them what data to analyze, how to track the ad based data, which is going to be on the ads manager to see actually their digital marketing specific metrics. And then we give them KPIs on where they should be. And then we give them all their systems metrics, right? Their lead to booking percentage, their booking to show rate, their show rate to day twos, their day 2 to conversion rate. And then we reverse engineer it through a client journey. And so we try to essentially identify where the constraints are throughout that process and then solve that constraint and then eventually lead to better outcomes over time. And so when we were able to solve those 4 basic problems inside of our system, and then we can take that system and replicate it for all of these other doctors, not only does it enhance their business acumen because they're starting to see marketing as an investment that can generate a really great, sustainable, and consistent return on investment, instead of having unpredictability and inconsistency with low quality control, then that's where we were able to start solving big problems for a lot of people. And I think that's why we grew so quickly.
I love that. You said so many good things there. I hope the listeners didn't miss. First thing I want to unpack was you talked about trust, right? And it's like the currency nowadays isn't money. Currency now in business is trust because there's
Exactly.
so many options out there. People don't know what to pick. So if they trust something, they're much more likely to engage in business with that company. And so I love that you guys have a whole system to, over time gain that trust, that exposure. So where they see you and now there's a brand that they know and they feel that they can trust. It's why companies like Nike and Coca-Cola, they still spend so much in advertising because they want that top of mind awareness always being there. So you have that trust factor.
That's
And
right.
and so yeah, and that's great that you guys do that. The second thing I love was the data. That's my love language is
I know
speaking
you do.
metrics and data. I know you know that about me. It's like, man, just data takes the emotion out of it. And I love that you guys break that down because really, I mean, when it comes to that advertising and marketing, there's almost no important data that we can have than that because marketing can get expensive real quick if you don't know your data. It can also be the best investment you ever make if you
That's
have
right.
the data. And so I love that you're talking, cost per lead and cost per new patient, CAC, cost to acquire customer, like all these really important numbers that you guys are measuring and stuff we're teaching our TRP clients how to understand and how to get. So I love that you guys already do that. That's going to be super, super valuable to your clients to be able to build that, that data fluency around marketing. Because like I said, I mean, we want to be spending, teaching TRP, you want to spend 8 to 12% of your goal revenue on marketing. Right. So if your goal this year is to hit $1 million, you need to spend $80,000 to $120,000 on marketing. And what we find is that most chiropractors spend maybe 2 to 3%. And that's a huge missed opportunity. But if we're going to invest 6 figures in marketing, we got to make sure we're going to get a good ROI for that. And that leads me into my next question for you is we always talk about how as CEOs and business owners, we want to get a good return on investment for anything that we do. So do you track what you expect or what you want to see as far as a return on investment for clients that work with you guys?
We do, yeah. And our average ROAS, and this is again across 375 different markets in the United States, and there's always going to be outliers, and we're not removing those outliers because we want to give an average. We want to give a realistic expectation because we always want to under promise and over deliver, as opposed to all of our prior experiences. It was the inverse. It was the over promise and the under deliver, and that led to disappointment on our end. And I know you're big on expectations and agreements, so we like to be clear with this, that we have an average of 6x return on ad spend. And a lot of people they're dumbfounded by that, because I think in their situation right now, they're potentially breaking even. On good months, they're breaking even. Maybe they have a great 2x ROAS, something like that. But whenever you can take the retainer fee out of the equation, and what data to track, so that you can start to confidently increase your ad spend, and you can actually start to scale that spend past that 2 to 3% of gross revenue, or your gross revenue goal, then you can start to see a higher return, especially whenever you're solving all of these constraints, like I outlined in our system. And a 6x ROAS for a lot of practices, I mean, that could be practice changing, and then once you hit that, our average metric, which is typically between month 1 and month 2, then we can start to scale the ad spend. And we know that there's not a direct proportion of scaling ad spend versus the return that you get. It's not like you get a 6x return on ad spend and you can double your ad spend and still get a 6x. Sometimes that ROAS goes down a little bit. The more that you spend, it's just how scaling works. But, if you're putting in $1,000 and you're getting out $4,500 at a really high ad spend, maybe you're, a couple $1,000,000 a year practice, it's still an incredible investment long term, especially when you know how to look at the data, analyze the data, make data informed decisions so that you're constantly improving, or at least you're maintaining consistency and predictability, because then you can make better decisions.
Always, yeah. And so you threw out some good terms there. So ROAS, for our listeners who don't know, that's return on ad
Sorry.
spend. And I think you did say it, but I wanted to be clear. Return on ad spend is simply, for every dollar I put in, how many dollars do I get back in revenue? Right. And so he's talking about 6 to 1. So that means for every dollar you put in, you're gonna get $6 back in revenue. Like how many dollars can you get if you're getting that kind of return? Right. So people ask me, like, how much should I spend on marketing? I say, well, first of all, what's your ROAS? What's your return on the investment? And second, how many new patients do you need? Like, you
That's
should
right.
spend as much on marketing as you can until all your new patient slots are filled up, as long as you're getting a positive return on investment. And then once all your new patient slots are filled, now it's like, okay, how can I maybe get a better return? How can I go from a 5 to 1 to a 7 to 1 or 8 to 1,
Mhm.
right? But it's like, even if I'm getting a 3 to 1, guess what? I'm getting a return, and I'm getting more new patients into those new patient time slots. Because we know that every new patient time slot that's empty on your weekly calendar, that's lost revenue. It's lost opportunity cost. That's somebody that could have been a new patient that could have turned into money, but because you didn't have enough marketing, it was a dead spot in the schedule. And so we want to really focus on that, and then we can optimize after that. So yeah, so great talking numbers with you, Travis, as always.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Great. So last question I have for you. I'm sure some
Yep.
listeners are intrigued by this and want to reach out and see how they can learn more about your company and maybe possibly work with you. What's the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
It's a great question. They can actually go to makingmoves.com. So it's MAKINGMUVS. So Making Moves is the parent company. Chiro-Ads Academy is the product. Makingmoves.com/TRP.
Perfect. That'd be great. So guys, if you're interested in talking to Dr. Travis and learning more about his company, please reach out to them. Go to that URL specifically for TRP docs, and they can, I'm sure, do an assessment of the existing marketing that they're doing, and help give suggestions on how you guys can make it better.
Yeah. And just to be extremely clear, this is a coaching program. So it's catch and release. So we teach you how to install this system in-house so that you have the control. And then essentially after that, there's no retainer fee. There's no program costs. It's just you putting marketing into your ad spend with the skills that you have developed over that 6 months.
Great. Love that. Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Travis, for being here with us. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Remarkable CEOs, remember, tune in each week to the Remarkable CEO podcast. I hope everybody has a blessed day, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.